we're on. So, I guess I'll go first because this was kind of my idea. That we should do a podcast together. We don't have a name for it yet or anything, right? I was just thinking we could call it Two Weirdos Sitting in the Park. We just came out here. I just thought it'd be cool to do it in the park, and we just did some breathing exercises to ground ourselves, and I just thought I got self-conscious all of a sudden, especially thinking about the fact that I guess that's part of the reason I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about doing a podcast for ages, and I know you kind of started doing
for years,
some
man.
stuff.
Yeah, but I've been wanting to do it for years as well.
Yeah.
Like I've been listening to podcasts for like on a like drug addict kind of level. Especially when I lived in London, it was just consuming podcasts on an extreme. Yeah, it was too extreme. Too many podcasts. But like I think it was also just the fact that I felt like the more I consume, the closer I get to knowing what I want to talk about, and doing it. But that never happened because there's quite a long, or can be a quite long gap from idea to action, and sometimes even just from desire to idea to action. So yeah, when you asked me, I was in. Like I actually had I made another arrangement with another guy on doing a podcast, but I just decided to cancel it in the last minute because I felt like it would be too much work doing that podcast right now compared to all the other stuff that I'm doing right now. So this format for me was perfect, and when you presented the idea, so you had a vision of us doing this podcast, and you kind of presented the idea in a way that I was like, yeah, sure, we can do this. I mean, I can help you doing this, but at the same time, I felt like shit. Then I'm getting put on the spot as well, and on the spot being, yeah, now I'm sitting here talking about a lot of stuff that I usually don't share, and that a lot of my friends, well, they know, but it's not like they're not exposed to the degree of of all the stuff,
weirdness
of
that
the
we talk
weirdness.
about.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think that's. But maybe you want to frame it a bit more.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a better frame than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the basic idea was, I think that we always have, I think we have a lot of really interesting discussions about stuff that generally, for me, we talk about shit that I generally don't talk about with other friends, and I think we're both we're kind of curious people, I guess. I think we're both exploring different aspects of life, asking some deep questions about what is it to be alive, what are we doing here, like all that kind of shit that just generally doesn't come up over over a cup of coffee. So and there's a few reasons for wanting to share it online, one of which, as I just mentioned, is just the fact that it's just an uncomfortable thing to do, which in my experience is always a good thing to do as well, to do something uncomfortable. And then, who knows, maybe some people might even listen to it or watch it, and maybe there might be something useful that people can get from it.
For sure.
Who knows? Like that's kind of, that would be an awesome bonus if that happens.
For sure. Yeah. That would be perfect. I think when we talked about this last time, we had a walk around the Ullerslev Mose in Nordvest, close where I live, and it became obvious to me that what's interesting about our relationship is that we actually don't have mutual friends, and that actually makes it easy to talk. Like the way we met, we actually met here in this park, which is quite cool. Long story short, I came home from London after working as a UX designer there, started training with a bunch of guys doing movement training, came back after I quit my job. I was really stressed. I wanted to do a vacation, like just a month vacation back in Denmark to sort of find my footing again. And just right before I left, I printed some t-shirts saying Naturlig Træning, and I just figured that I need to try to share some of this training stuff that I've been doing in London. and I just hit the ground running. So it was supposed to be a vacation, but I ended up doing a sprint, which was quite weird because like what killed me in the last job was just that this boss was said he talked about us doing like Scrum and Agile processing or processes when working, but the only thing he made us do was sprints. Like this week is going to be a sprint, and next week we're going to chill, and then two days into next week, yeah, we're going to do a sprint again. So we were just dying. But this way, I went into the sprint like just starting to teach everywhere, like at my parents' house in Djursland, and then in Aarhus I had a workshop, and then here in Copenhagen. And then I just put up these events, and I had an idea like I'm just gonna do morning training 7 o'clock for 1 week in Nørrebroparken, and the price was something like 70 kroners or something like that. And the only guy who showed up for a week was Tom. So he just got really cheap personal training. I mean, I guess that was also what my skill set was worth, or what I was worth at that time. But that was kind of how it started and how we met. I mean, I know Tom's now wife from way back.
Mm-hmm. That was how I.
That was how you heard
found
about
out about
it.
you. Yeah.
But it was just so cool to meet each other like that. So so back to what I was trying to say, like we don't have mutual friends as such. So when we meet, we only talk about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like and due to the fact that we also. We got to talking at some point during training about ayahuasca, and we actually had our first ayahuasca ceremonies together. Still not quite knowing each other at that point, but sharing that experience and sort of going into that space. And as she said, like it was quite obvious that we're both really interested in knowing more, learning more about all this stuff, like getting to know ourselves better, or getting to know ourselves more. So yeah, every time we talk, it's like it's a weird vacuum, I find, almost, because it's not like the talks I usually have. I mean, not that it's better than other talks in the sense that I wish all my other friends and I had talks like this, because this is just a different format, and that's what I'm trying to say, that we go pretty deep quite fast, and we want to talk about spiritual stuff as well. Yeah. So and that's the thing that we can do together, because there's not a long history, which is in our case really positive.
Yeah.
Like it's just here now.
Yeah.
Like this is what it is now, and this is who we're trying to be now, and who we are right now. So yeah, that's what I really liked about this, and that's also what it was quite scary to say yes to doing this, because it was. It is more open. Like we haven't gone into the stuff yet, but let's see if it gets interesting.
Yeah. Let's see where it goes. Who knows?
In
Who
an
knows where it's
uncomfortable
gonna
way.
go?
Yeah.
But yeah,
So-
no, I think having that's the thing about people you've known for a long time, right? Is there's a lot of identity tied up in that, right?
Yeah.
Like whether people see you a certain way or not, I think I certainly feel this kind of almost like a need to want to show up in the way that I think they see me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that long, so if I'm talking to a friend that I've known since I was a kid, it's like I'm sort of, I feel like in some ways I have to show up in the way that I always have.
For sure.
You know, otherwise it's like they won't know who I am, or they won't
Be
or
thrown
they'll
off
be-
almost.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's this weird thing of like we have some jokes that we've been references throughout our life, and if one brings up one reference, it's like, oh yeah, that was back then, and the thing about what we're doing right now is like it's constantly looking forward rather than talking about what used to be, and I quite like that, because sometimes it's tricky when you meet old friends. It's not like we hang out like every week, but when we hang out, it's not about talking about what we did last time, and sometimes maybe you've experienced this, meeting up with old friends is recapping what happened since last time. Other friends, of course, it's just like you go right into just being together, which is amazing. But yeah, there's something in this space where you can sort of let go of that previous relation, and especially if you've been doing work, like you've been doing crazy amount of work the recent years. I have been doing some as well. Like sometimes when you have examined like just patterns and like your own history, and when you see certain patterns and feel like, oh, I need to break this pattern, I need to stop doing this, and then you meet a friend that didn't witness the transformation. This is some of the stuff that after I came back from the Rite of Passage facilitator training, looking on how we can create rites of passages for young men, going from boys to young men. One of the things that was really obvious was when you have a transformational experience and the community is not there to witness your transformation, then the transformation cannot be complete, and then you're in a limbo because you changed, but everybody else is still talking to you like they did before. A good example is coming home to your mother after maybe you're 17, 18, 15, you had a long trip somewhere, like maybe your first trip alone or with a friend, and you feel like a man now. You come home and things have changed for you. You've seen the world. It's like time slowed down. Like you lived an entire life now, and you come back home, you see nothing's changed here. Weird. It should have changed. Something should have changed. But the way that your parents address you or your mom addresses you is maybe like, yeah, you know, the dinner is ready in 5 and you just leave your laundry here, and instead of acknowledging that you transformed into something else. Or it can be really simple, just what do you think we should do for dinner? Not what do you want for dinner, but what do you think we should do? Like invite you in, saying you're part of the decision because you're an adult now. You know, just maybe have I remember this so clearly, actually, talking to my mother. She works with kids, and she's a rytmikpædagog, so she works with caretakers and people who teach kids and deal with kids. And I remember she talked to me and my brother in kind of the same way as she talked to the kids. Like she changed her voice.
Even when you were like an adult.
Yeah, but I think this was me being 15, 17 or something like that. And I just remembered at some point I had to say to her, you need to stop talking to us like this. It was not in a harsh way I said it. It just because all of a sudden it was obvious to me, like, boom, this needs to stop. It annoys me because she's talking to me like, yeah, and then she did. She just, oh, yeah, I can do that. Instead of saying, no, you're my little boy, and la la la, trying to, because the mothers are never ready to let go of their boy.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so it's back to what like when it comes to relationships, because it is like a good long relationship becomes like maybe our relationship could be like a father-son relationship, like in the dynamic. Like I always come to you for advice, or you always say, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and I always have to apologize, or maybe it's I'm trying to make you proud of me or whatever. It can also be a brother-brother relationship where it's equal, but it can also be an older brother, younger brother relationship where it's not equal, where one is always trying to be a bit better than the other one. So those patterns can be tricky to break, especially if it's only one. That obviously it's rare that people go into to looking at their relationship. It's beautiful when it happens, but it's rare that a couple of friends go into a relationship to really examine it. A long journey can travel together, can do that. If you're aware of it, it can also just be a trip somewhere where you ham it all the time and you maybe, have some crazy experiences, but you still come back to the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's what we do well when we meet, is that we're interested in learning about what happened on the other guy's journey, and I think it's like selfish reasons. Like we want to learn how can I benefit from learning what you did. like the stretch 22 was that?
Yeah.
Like that sounds really really intense, and like I saw and experienced and can still see the difference that it or the impact that it had on you. So yeah, I'm really intrigued by that, and yeah, intrigued by Preston and the stuff that he's doing. So it's so in that sense, it's also because it interests me. Obviously, you have friends where you don't have the same interests,
Yeah.
and that can also be tricky.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe I should explain. Like Stretch 22 is like an online program for 6 months duration that I took last year, which is run by a guy called Preston Smiles, and yeah, it was a real life changer for me. Like it's basically just there's like a community of 22 people online, and you basically just get a bunch of challenges, like stuff that's really designed to like just trigger the shit out of you and do things that you wouldn't normally do, but because you have that like support network and you
Yeah.
have that accountability that you actually it gives you that extra push, I think, to go there, and yeah, that was massive for me. But yeah, also to what you were saying, I think we're just like any, you know, I guess a lot of friends get together because they have one common interest, you know, that they like to geek out about, and
Yeah.
it just happens that our common interest is to do with development, I guess,
Yeah.
like physical and mental, emotional
Yeah.
development, I guess,
Yeah.
because yeah, I was also thinking maybe like, I mean, we really didn't plan this thing at all. We basically just agreed that we were going to record a podcast, and then we're just going to see where it goes. Like, but the most important thing is just to start
Yeah.
doing it,
Yeah.
because I think we've both experienced this thing of having an idea and then just sitting on it and waiting for the right moment, like waiting till all the conditions are perfect,
Yeah.
and then before you know it, like 2 years have gone by and you haven't started it. So that was the thing. Like,
Somebody
we
else
just,
did
to
it.
do something, yeah. Also, and then they make it, and then they're a
Yeah.
millionaire or something.
Yeah.
So it's just like the idea was just to just fucking sit down and record ourselves talking, and see what comes of it, and then like the intention is to make it a regular thing, and presumably over time we'll refine it, and if anybody actually listens to it, maybe we'll get some feedback, and then we
Yeah.
can start taking that on board
one
as well.
guy, girl,
Yeah.
woman.
Which we love you, by the way.
Yeah.
So where was I going with that? Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, yeah, in the interest of, if there is an audience to this, like maybe we should back up a little bit,
Yeah.
because we didn't even introduce ourselves, we just kind of started talking, right? So
True, yeah.
uh,
We can just
yeah.
cut this and put it. Yeah, that would be
just like cut away
sneaky.
to something,
Yeah.
to a dancing elephant or something. So yeah, like, this is Benjamin Boos. So we mentioned we're friends. Like, how would you describe yourself? Like, if you had to sort of, I know that's a very
Yeah,
a
that's
difficult question, but like, to someone who's never met you before, how would you describe?
I mean, it's easy
what
to
you do.
just say what I do, like work stuff. So trying to talk about me as a person before that.
Don't have to. I mean, that's the
I
thing.
think
Most
it's-
people say, I that's the first thing people say, right? When you
Yeah.
ask them,
Yeah.
you know, that's the
It-
first
it-
question. What do you do?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
That's a job, but
But yeah, but it's I think it's an interesting challenge to think beyond that, or just think like, who are you if you're not working? Like, first of all, I'm a father to a 14-month-old boy named Wilfred, and he didn't sleep much last night, so I'm smashed, which is interesting to experience. Just days where you where you just don't have energy, where you just everything is just way harder. And as we talked about just before we turn on the camera, like if you have this to-do list of 5 things, and you're lucky if you get to one. So trying to keep that focus, and yeah, I'm really interested as a person. I'm really interested in what the fuck am I interested in? Yeah, I'm interested in movement, first of all. So I can't really get around that a big part of me is my interest in movement and being physical, and that's also my profession. So I'm a trainer and a coach,
And that was what brought us together
exactly,
initially as
yeah.
well.
But that was in the beginning of all. So I have a design background from Comic Design School. I was always interested in solving big puzzles. Like one of the big ones, like we're indoors more than 90% of our lives. Like if you were supposed to be outside just 10% every day, like it would be 2 hours and 40 minutes, right, of your day. Like here in Copenhagen, people are never outside that much, unless it's summer, and they're not working. So for me, that was an interesting task always. Also, like working with human interaction, that was a big part for me. When I studied in Kolding, it was interaction design, human-computer interaction. For me, it was always human interaction. Whereas today, you see that more and more with social media. Like it's more human interaction. Obviously, there's a medium where you can go through that. But yeah, how can we, come closer in our relationships and with our parents and with our kids, and like so the rite of passage is a huge thing for me. How to raise young boys is kind of one of my next ventures. So yeah, that's my interest, and that takes up a huge part of my thinking and doing. So I move a lot. I try to see how I can make a living and make a life for myself where it's about relations and having time to be with my girlfriend and my woman and my son and my parents and my friends. And yeah, I think that's who I am for now. Also, I'm really interested in the metaphysical world as well. Been really diving deep on a lot of ayahuasca ceremonies for some years now. I'm just kind of taking a break from it, just because it's nice to take breaks sometimes.
Sure.
And yeah, I think on that note, I felt like waking up in my late 20s. Like that was, I felt like that was like me becoming conscious at the age of 29, which is weird to say. What the fuck was I doing up until then? Like, but yeah, I think that's an introduction, maybe.
Yeah, man. That's
And so this is Tom Craig, Thomas Craig. Did you take Sarah's last name, or did you
no.
change
I'm
the last
still
name? You're still
Thomas Sebastian Crate.
Tom Sebastian Craig, and yeah, we met right here, over there.
This is in Nørrebro Park, by
Yeah,
the way,
in
for those
Copenhagen.
in Copenhagen, in the Nørrebro district.
And this November, so it's quite cold. Tom's sitting
Yeah.
here barefooted, which is he gets all the points.
I'm
for
actually
doing
fucking
that. Yeah, I
freezing.
can see
I was
your
like,
lips are turning
I
blue
know.
a
I'm
bit.
like, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, it's a really good idea to come sit outside. And now it's like
Yeah,
10
the
minutes
beanie
in,
you
I'm
can-
like,
you
fuck.
can
It's
wrap
like,
around
yeah.
it.
I
All right,
think
but
I'll put my hat on at
but
least.
an introduction, Tom. Who or how would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, aside from being freezing right now,
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny because that's the sort of thing that I would filter that answer depending on who I'm speaking to. So that I
You're
think that's
speaking to me and a fake audience.
and anybody else, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the
Fake. You're not fake.
that's something that's interesting for me is maybe I'm taking a bit of a tangent, but
Yeah. That's what I do.
the cool thing about doing, rather than just having a conversation with each other and to people I've no idea who
Yeah.
it is that might be listening or watching this is I'm very aware of how much I filter my own how I express myself or how I try to come across. So I notice how my behavior changes depending on who I'm with, and as we mentioned, like we have different conversations. Like I have different conversations with you than I have with a lot of my other friends because they're in different arenas, and
Sure.
and I sort of, and this is all my own like my own choice, I guess, is that I don't embrace, you know, other topics. Or I don't, you know, I don't sort of generally dig into things like spirituality or things with friends at work or whatever. Not necessarily because they might be interested in it, but I'm more afraid of how I might be judged for that, you know, which is kind of an interesting thing about putting this, you know, doing this, putting it on the internet, and then thinking, oh fuck, I know once it goes on the internet, I'm going to be like, shit, I'm going to be thinking about, oh, what if my friends see this, and, you know, blah blah blah, what are they going to think, all that stuff.
Me too.
But anyway, that was a tangent.
Tom is really self-aware.
Yes, really self-conscious. So yeah, I mean, I would have, let's say 5-6 years ago, my stock response would be, yeah, I'm Tom Crate. I'm a motion designer, so I do like animation, graphic design, and that's, you know, that's it really. Like I'm generally interested in fitness and blah blah blah, all that, you know, music, all that bullshit. But
So what's the updated one?
so the updated one is, I have no fucking clue. I guess that's the updated one, and that's actually, for me, that's a good place to be. Actually, like actually embracing the fact that I really don't, that I'm basically I'm a different person to everyone that I meet, and that's cool. Like in my essence. Yeah, I guess I'm just whatever's happening right now. I think this is probably sounding a bit wanky and esoteric.
No, let's
Um,
just try to own it instead of judging it.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's,
But I
that's
guess
the point of this as well.
to put it in a bit of context, I think where I was going with it was, like, there was a point you mentioned that you had you started becoming more aware in your late 20s. And I think for me it was probably more like early 30s. It was around the time, I guess around the time, you know, the same time for both of us, just before we met. I was at a point in my life where I pretty much like achieved all the things that I really had set out to achieve in my life. Like all of my kind of main goals up to that point were to have like a good job that I enjoyed, to have a good relationship with a nice lady. So if you're watching this,
Check.
apologies
Yeah.
for the and just having a nice home,
Yeah.
and living somewhere nice. And so that's basically it. You know, I basically like I really enjoyed Copenhagen. You know, I recently bought an apartment together with my girlfriend. I had a good job that I enjoyed, and, you know, I had enough money to sort of, you know, bit of disposable income, and I was just kind of, I guess I was just total comfort zone, just like coasting, and I don't know, something just got me wanting to dig a bit deeper, I guess. I think just realizing that, you know, it's a total cliche, but, you know, what you get doesn't really matter what you get in life. You still, you know, it doesn't actually change your, doesn't make you happy, whatever. You know, it doesn't. It's the happiness thing. Well, I think there's a lot to that, but it's basically wherever you go, you take your mind with you, right? So the same kind of sort of, although life for me was probably, I was probably enjoying my life more in general than when I was younger, for certain reasons, like in terms of developing a bit more self-confidence and that kind of thing, but there was still a lot of old sort of behavior and you know, patterns of behavior that were making my life uncomfortable in many ways, I guess, and just got me. The first thing I think was just getting into. I think I started going to see a psychotherapist initially, just under the kind of the idea that I just wanted to get more confidence, and he started digging a little bit, you know, started getting me thinking a bit more about what's actually going on in there. And at the same time, I started getting more I got more motivated, I guess, to get more like to get in shape. I started doing martial arts again, which I hadn't done for years, and that led me into things like Ido Portal and some more, actually getting really interested in just general body maintenance and also mind maintenance, and that was kind of how I met you. I just sort of got into this Ido Portal stuff, and I was thinking like I want to do more of this, and then one of those weird little coincidences where my girlfriend told me that an old friend of hers was doing this natural training, and you should try it out, and I was like, okay, sweet. And yeah, and I guess it's just been a gradual process for me of pushing, just exploring deeper into those areas, and I guess I'm more, in the beginning it was much more of physical development that I was interested in, and now I still enjoy training and moving and stuff like that, but I see the sort of mental aspect of it more. It interests me more and more as I go on. And so a lot of that was like, you kind of got me into that in a way, like, because I remember when I first met you, like, you were kind of like, you mentioned that you've been a UX designer in London, and you kind of taken a career shift, and I think that was kind of it was really interesting for me to like have a real life example of someone that was kind of, you basically in a very similar sort of career path to me, and then you just completely you've completely gone off in another direction.
I mean, just to briefly to mention what happened in London was like, it was just a baptism of fire, basically. Like, I came straight from design school, from uni, or what do you call it in English, and got headhunted to this company, and I was like the second one hired, so I had a lot of office hours just sitting there in front of the boss, which was like, we had desks like opposite each other. It was really nerve-wracking for me, as just coming out of the gate. And actually it was a job that I didn't really study for. Like, it was not, I was doing UX, and in the beginning I was doing research, and then I was doing some UX later on, but it was nothing that I've been interested in doing my time at the school. But it was like one of these things, like, oh, it's a great opportunity, and now I'm gonna see how that goes. And it was stressful, to say the least. Like, he was really pushing me to learn as fast as possible. He said, like, we're gonna do the progressive overloads. We're just gonna throw a shit ton of work your way and see how you deal. And then you get a raise, or you get a raise once in a while, and you can go for the design lead title. And all of a sudden I was chasing a title, which was so weird, because I was never interested in that stuff. Like, never interested in like thinking about my resume and the title and all this stuff. But all of a sudden I saw that it could be a life. Like, I saw a life where this could happen. But and at the same time I started training this natural movement stuff. I think maybe for another talk we will talk about my experience with my physical body in that sense. But training besides work with Ben Metter and Tony Riddle and some other guys was like what helped me survive this job. So I did a lot of symptom treatment just to stay in the job, to be physical able to do and mentally able to work that job, because like, he started to manipulate us, like all the guys working at the office, like, in a crazy way, and manipulating me. And we actually had a buddy relationship, but he was at the same time manipulating me. So
what sort of time period was this? Like, how long were you
this
there?
was I was there for 14 months, and the last 1.5 months after I quit, like, he and that was an interesting that was like where I learned a lot about myself, because one of my dear friends at that time, or that I hung out with a lot at that time, is still a dear friend. He mentioned to me, when you quit, like, you've been in the business for a long time, when you quit, just know that he will offer you more money. Like, you think, or that was not what he said, that was what I thought. Like, I felt like I wasn't that much worth to him. So when he offered money, like that would be like, oh, so I'm actually worth something to you. Obviously, time invested and all this stuff is one thing, but I did a good job there as well. And then when he said like he's gonna offer you money, I was like, I'm not gonna take the money. I know that. And sure enough, he offered me way more money and said, you can get, I already offered you like percentage of the thing when it gets, it was a startup, so when it gets blah blah blah. And I said no to the money. And all of a sudden he did this really clever shift when he said, buddy, I really need you to do me a solid on this one. It's so difficult to find UX designers right now, blah blah blah. And when he talked to me on a personal like buddy level, I just switched like, sure, I can help. Yeah, I can help you out. Are you sad? Are you okay? I'm gonna help you. So he just pulled me back in that way, and I was like, afterwards I was like, huh, yeah. So I just went straight into bed with him again. What the fuck? But then, luckily, it ended, and after that I was just smashed. Like I could feel the stress symptoms from already months before, like just this tingling sensation up my arms and my neck every time he stepped in the office. And yeah, it was just everything was just about work and getting ready for work. So I didn't really see friends. Yeah. So it was a baptism of fire, and I knew that if I'm getting back into UX design after that job, because all my friends said, do freelance, you can make more money and you can control your own time and all stuff. I was not ready for it. First of all, like I didn't feel like I had had things down to work freelance, too creative, not the professional in that sense. And all of a sudden I was like, but I'm just gonna work more hours in an office. I'm gonna work way more hours in an office. Maybe I can get a better salary, because now that I have this on my resume, like it was associate lead, so it was a shit title anyways, but like just with the short amount that I've been working, like I could get a pretty decent job next time. And then what about the next job again? I was like, this is not how I want to be thinking at all. Like this is not, I'm just sitting in an office and I'm gonna be in London, all my friends and families in Denmark, and blah blah blah. And then so all of a sudden it happened that when I went back to Denmark and came to this idea of just teaching, I learned that being a teacher in this training was actually quite fun right now. So I'm going to do that for a while. And yeah, and then I kind of just abandoned the design trade little by little, and not missing it at all. But I had great learning experiences there. But this was a really, like the way I see it, it was several years of being in that business for me, just boiled down into one job. Because I hear a lot of friends, a lot of my old friends, with similar experiences, but just not as intense and spread out over more bosses. And this guy was just really intense. And he, he just pushed it, like in a way that, get it. This is just, I got the feeling that this is just not for me. And the thing is, I know that it could have been for me, like working in design, because I have a lot of friends there still, and it's still something that interests me, but it's not for me, and because I was breaking my neck doing that stuff. Physically, it was not good for me. Stress-wise, not good for me. And freedom-wise, I just realized that I can't have a boss in this way. Like, there's something that I really want to do and something that I need to do. Like, I need to go to this thing, but I need vacation here. And it's like, and they're like, what? This feels wrong. Like somebody's saying, you can't do what you want to do. Like this is.
He owns you.
He owns me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So, and then I quit, and then it was, and then I ended up living with a Turkish millionaire.
I don't know that
Right
part.
after, yeah, that's another story. If you're watching this, Gem,
to go into that another time.
Good times. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, had 3 months after that just recovering with him and hanging out. So that was fun. Anyways, that's kind of that was my path into this. So yeah, a similar experience of being in a business, working with people, having a lot of fucking deadlines, working on a product. This needs to be perfect, and then reiterate and coming home and telling people that I work in London, and people were like, what? And I was like, yeah. It's I'm kind of a big deal now. I didn't say that, but I felt like saying that makes people look at me like I made it.
Yeah.
And being there, I was like, I didn't make it at all.
Yeah.
I was just there struggling, doing something that I really didn't enjoy,
Yeah.
and feeling like a fraud doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was a nice sort of a nice sort of image on how it was for me to stay there and doing something that I was really not supposed to do.
At the same time, you're really good at it, right? Like, I mean, that you studied at the Royal School of Design and stuff, right?
No, Kolding School of Design. So it's the one in the countryside, not the one in Copenhagen, but it's better. No, I was really good at it, and
Yeah. No, I mean, I've
and,
seen your work, and it's, you know, it's like,
yeah, I mean,
it's not like you were just sort of trying it out.
No,
Like
no,
you,
no,
I mean, you
no.
could easily have had a very successful career in that.
yeah, I think so too, and that's also why it was so difficult for a long time. I felt like, yeah, I'm just doing this training thing until I get back to the other thing, because I can still see the potential in doing these kind of projects and working this way, but it's just the thing now is just it has just changed into being more human focused, human centered. So like, working with rite of passage and creating these examples that I would refer to in what I did before, more so. Yeah, but it was something that I spent a lot of energy doing. But going back to like, why are you doing this stuff? Like, so a psychotherapist like started to poke around, like, what's the bevæggrund? What's the reason for you doing this, and why are you seeking approval like this? And there was a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Going into, okay, I'm doing all this stuff because I'm trying to prove myself, or I'm trying to save myself by trying to save others, which is classic in design, in interaction design. Everybody wants to save the world, like, and they don't have anything down themselves. Like they're a mess.
Yeah.
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 Sorry, yeah, it's pretty old. We're all still. Yeah.
You said something that's interesting to me, particularly was when you said, you know, a lot of people are doing it over a long period of time. You know, a lot of people
Cute
are.
dog
That's
coming
the
by.
dog we thought we needed.
We knew what we were doing. Dog break.
Dog interview. So yeah, you said something about how you had just an extremely intense experience, right? And a lot of people kind of experience those symptoms of stress and but over a much more extended period. So in a way where it's like this is kind of, I feel like this is something that's it's sort of a topic that I'm really interested in as well.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a bit like, you know, that thing where you're like cooking, what is it, like you're cooking the rabbit or something, and you do it slowly.
Not a rabbit, a frog.
A frog,
or
whatever.
a-
Yeah, you could
a
cook
rabbit.
anything really. I mean,
just as long as you do it slowly.
yeah, as long as you do it slow, they won't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you don't actually. It's very difficult when it happens, when something happens in a very short space of time. It's much easier to recognize when things are happening that are not good for you, right?
Exactly.
But when things happen, and especially when you're in a culture and society where it's normal to be putting yourself in a situation that's not healthy in many different ways. That and you're looking around, everyone else is doing the same thing. So if you're not feeling good in a certain way, then I guess the most logical conclusion is, oh, there must just be something wrong with me, and I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, and I did that for so long. I tried to do this symptom treatment by really listening to a lot of the biohacking podcast. Like, I need to dial in my sleep. I need to dial in my training regimen. I need to dial in my food. fasting, like trying to improve myself in all these ways so I could really do good at the job. And seriously, I mean, that shit worked for me in a long time on a on a symptom treatment level. Like the first half a year, I learned so much, and I really just I was just aware, and I was just full of energy. But I also didn't see a lot of the friends that I've had friends in London, and so I didn't see them much because I was just focused on work. Like get up early, do some training, make a bulletproof coffee, go to work, listen to podcasts, be ready. So when you get in there, I'm like jazzed up and like ready to work. And then in lunch break, I'm walking for 20 minutes, sitting down, squatting, doing some movements as well while I eat. After work, I train. Then I go home. Then I cook for the meal and a lunch for the next day, and then just repeat. Fridays were long as well, so Saturday was just me resting, coming down, and Sunday was me getting ready again. So it was like fucking intense, and yeah, I could just that was not sustainable at all. At one point, something that I talk about at my retreats when we talk about the importance of touch, and I had this experience of just I was just working crazy hours for 2 weeks, and one day at the office I was sitting there working like this, and one of my colleagues came really close to my shoulder behind me, and I reacted with a startling response, and I was like, that's weird. Like she just almost touched my shoulder, and you know how it is in an office, you can't really touch like you would outside, like just normal things becomes awkward, and then people start to avoid touching each other because that becomes more awkward and all this stuff. But then I realized that I was startled by just one of my co-workers approaching me, like, and I was like, fuck, this is not good. And then I went out, got really drunk with some friends, and finally I hung out with the friends and got drunk, and and maybe something happened that night with a person, so I got some skin contact. But that was just so important for me to realize that I've been just neglecting all the, like I'm not just a fucking machine performing a task, because that was basically what I was doing. I was just trying to be a good machine, or a good, well-optimized human that can do this job that's really important. And I told myself the job was important because that was what my boss made me believe, or I tried to make myself believe, because I was so conscious that I wanted to save the world at the design school. I really I want to make things better, and this platform could do that. Really, it was just a platform to help designers sell their physical products, so sell more shit, which is not making a lot of stuff better. It's making stuff better for some, but yeah. So that was kind of getting back to am my needs being met, or am I just trying to sort of circumvent some mechanisms that's really important. And I was just I was a mess. Besides like the physical stuff, like the stress wise, it was just climbing. Yeah.
Was there a specific point there where it kind of broke for you, or was it more of a gradual?
There was so many episodes with that guy. Like it was not just that guy. It was being in this office where it's kind of like the fire alarm goes off, nobody reacts, so you just sit there. Shit, like this. But the building's on fire, right? Yeah, but we're not gonna do anything.
Yeah, someone's gonna fix it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we're just okay. Not. Oh no. Like it was this weird feeling of, for sure there's a fire here. I can feel there's a fire. Everybody can feel there's a fire, but nobody's doing anything.
No way.
Because people have expensive apartments. They need to pay rent. They need to do all this stuff. So this job is really important. So I can't just leave. But like when I quit, I was the 5th guy quitting. Like there was 4 guys before me quitting with like severe stress symptoms because of the boss guy. He was just pushing people in a really unhealthy way. But like that was his management style. I would say, like, just the product is important. So if I need to burn through a couple of hardworking people, well, that's in the budget. Like,
Yeah.
we budgeted for that.
Yeah. Well, it worked with Steve Jobs, right? As I understand
So,
it.
yeah, I don't know much about his story, but yeah, I think I hear that that's somehow people do that stuff all the time. So sitting there working with people where it's like he was just being so mean to the secretary Tracy, like so fucking mean, and she was just the nicest lady, but like it was again all the stuff about standing up for yourself. Like you can't talk to me like that, but he was so manipulating in a way that I didn't really see it coming. Like I was like, what? Did I just got messed up like real bad again? And I didn't. No, he was nice, wasn't he? No, I don't. Like he came in at one point like just shouting at me and my coworker, says, "Why didn't you see this bug? You should have blah blah blah." And then me and my wife sit there and we do the quality assurance and we find this bug and it shouldn't be there, and you guys should be on top of it. And Benjamin, if you want that pay rise and if you want this title, you really need to be blah blah blah. And we were just sitting there, and it was just like it was 5 minutes after we came in the door. I sat down. Boom. Then he walks out, and we just sit there, me and my French colleague Emily, and we just sit looking at each other. What the hell? And he comes back in through the door like 5 minutes later. Guys, have you heard about this weird new thing that's going on? Like it's, and then he tried to tell some joke, and I was like, oh, I see. But there was so many episodes like that, and it was just it was constantly being the buddy, and then like, good job, and then other times just being just grinding and stabbing. Like it's hard for me to explain. It's been a while, but it was like a slow drip of like Loki being tied under the venomous snake, if you know Norse mythology. Like this that burned. When it's coming back? No, it's not coming back. It's not coming back. That was actually okay. It has a couple more. That's it again. But but you're not dying. But yeah.
But like you say, maybe he was doing you a favor in the sense that he was a lot more intense than a lot of people's bosses that are, or a lot of people's work situations that maybe they're okay, they're fine,
Yeah.
but they're still not really getting, they're not really allowing people to really get the best out of themselves, or even really really enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
So or
I actually saw the Tony Robbins documentary again recently,
Oh, yeah.
and he says this. He's first we're talking about this. But he's like when you blame a parent, let's say, for all the bad that happened to you, also blame them for all the good that happened to you. So obviously, this guy didn't. He wasn't all bad. Like as I mentioned, we had a buddy relationship, and I liked him. That was also why it was so hard for me to be like, you are really not healthy. Like, this is not a healthy relationship because you're fucking me up, basically. But he did show me, like he did push me into doing more than I thought I could, and he gave me a great opportunity, and I met nice people, and it was a fun experience all in all. And like this was one of those rite of passages that I keep talking about. It was something that definitely pushed me and transformed me in a way that was very important. So he was a catalyst for that, and I cannot be grateful for that. And I think it's the first time I used the word grateful about meeting him, but that's actually how I feel. Like that was a really shitty, really good experience. Otherwise, maybe I would be here in a different way, but I wouldn't have had all the experience that I've had so far.
No, that's awesome, man. Congratulations on having that. I think it's always it's like a massive thing. I think when you can look back on things in your life that previously you would like be resentful of, and actually see how they shaped you, and be grateful for them.
Yeah.
Because also a big thing about that is you're also you're taking back responsibility for your own life as
Yeah.
well, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about whenever you blame anybody or anything for any kind of situation in your life, you're taking on a victim like mentality in
Mm.
a way, right? And you're basically saying that you're powerless,
Yeah.
and that they, whatever it is, that person thing controlled you, did this thing to you, and you had no control over that
Mm.
whatsoever. And I think like, and if you say that, then it is true,
Mm.
right? But you can also, if you're willing to, it's not always that easy, but if you're willing to take full responsibility and say that, well, you know, I still chose to be in that situation. Like I could have, you know, there's always, all right, maybe there's someone has a gun to your head.
There's
then
learning
it's-
to be had, right? Like, why did I put myself in this situation? Why am I still in this situation? Then you can start to evaluate like your decisions and look into, oh, is there an unhealthy pattern here that I'm not aware of, or am I just sacrificing this thing right now for the greater good, which is also fine. But just like what happened to me was like I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I was just going along and not being conscious that this is not healthy. So yeah, it's as you said, like yeah, right now. So it just made me think like, so I don't have a boss as it is right now. I have like contracts with people when we work together. But you still recently, or you still work for people. You're freelance now. But up until I can't remember when you went freelance, you still
about a year ago,
Yeah.
so a year and a half ago.
yeah. And your colleagues working with bosses and all that stuff. Like, what's your thoughts on? Yeah, just maybe tuning in, like checking in with yourself. Am I doing what's good for me, or am I a place right now working with something that is actually benefiting me or pulling me kind of off tracks, or maybe it's just standing in a limbo. Like for me, I could have been there easily if things weren't that intense. I could have stayed there for 5 years maybe. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I don't know
mean,
if that was a question, but
for me, like, it's still like, since I left a full-time job to go freelance,
yeah.
because I wanted to take more control over my life, you know, my working hours and those kind of things. And it's in many ways it's sort of, in some ways it's been more stressful in the sense
The
that
dog is
the dog's bite.
Sorry, I get distressed. Distracted.
It's definitely been, it's kind of like, I feel a bit like I've sort of launched this rocket, and you know, and sometimes it feels like it's I mean, like for example, right now I feel like I'm in a really good position where I'm working the kind of hours that I want to work, and I'm really enjoying the people that I'm working with, and I'm sort of working to my own schedule. There's also been times where it's kind of been the opposite, where I feel like I'm working even more than I ever did, and I'm not really enjoying the work. And it's a constant case of sort of figuring things out, course correcting, and like you talk about, like checking in with myself. You know, does this feel right? Like, why am I even doing this? You know, like what's the payoff for me? And there's definitely been times where I've gotten to the stage where I'm like, I'm not really, you know, I'm starting to feel symptoms of stress and anxiety, and I can feel like that I'm at that point in time I'm not in a situation that's particularly healthy for me. The good thing about being freelance is it's on a project by project basis. So so no project really lasts more than 2 or 3 months, and then once that's done, I can reassess and sort of you know,
Yeah,
look
I guess
at what's working and not working.
that's a good and bad, right? Because you can also just stick out the or stay in the suffering, or like it's gonna be over in a week. I'm just keep doing that, and like hopefully you won't break until you know it's over. But like that was how I felt at that job. Like the sprint is almost over.
Yeah.
This is not good.
Yeah.
I'm wired and super stressed.
I mean, for sure, it is very, it's a very, very, like, tricky
Mm.
thing, I think, to navigate. But it's something because um, because I had an experience. I guess kind of continuing from the story I was telling before about like my sort of getting more interested in looking after my body and my mind and stuff like that. And then a couple of years ago, I had like a sort of complete burnout where my body just completely just almost fucking gave up on me. And up until that point, I wasn't really aware. Like I was all into the biohacks, and I was looking after myself. I was training. I was eating well, and I thought, well, I'm on the good side of. I have stress in my life, but I'm prepared for it and I deal with it, and that's so I'm just I'm good,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, without even really realizing that I was super stressed, that like things just stopped, like my body basically stopped working, and to the point where it would it really made me completely reconsider pretty much everything. Whether I was totally ready to give up on that career and do something completely different. In the end, I chose to go back into it, and I'm acutely aware of that. The power that's the danger that we put ourselves in. Just through putting ourselves in stressful situations or anxiety. I mean, and so I've definitely asked a lot of questions of myself at certain times where I thought, I sort of came through that, and I was like, I'm a changed man. It's like, I'm never going to do that to myself again. I'm never going to be stressed. Everything's going to be great, and I started, I went out and sort of gave talks and stuff about it, kind of from this very, looking back on it, maybe was a little bit, maybe a little bit naive, because I'd only just started out on my. Actually, I don't think it's naive. I think I was just optimistic, and then what I'm doing now is
It was honest.
Yeah, I mean, I
It was
didn't.
fucking
None of it
honest.
was bullshit.
It was not bullshit.
And
It was-
I think
came
I'd
from a real place.
I'd sort of gone. I'd sort of basically rebuilt myself in a way, because I felt like I'd hit rock bottom, and then I rebuilt myself up again in a very positive, with a very positive sort of environment and support. And so I was super optimistic, and I still totally believe everything that I said. But and then I think my sort of or just the general, I guess, general conditioning of that I guess most of us have, that good things don't come easy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It started weighing back in a little bit, and I still feel like I'm in a much better position than I was before, but I'm sort of like I'm discovering hasn't turned out quite as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I still think that it's basically I'm in the process of figuring out how to get to a place where I fully believe that it's like that everybody's capable of living a life where you can support yourself, financially, basically have everything you want without having to sacrifice your health or your happiness or any of those things. I believe that, like, we're all inherently, like, just good enough. We have everything we need, and a lot of the problems that we all face are ultimately avoidable, and or even, I mean, saying things like problems, it's not, life is inherently going to have problems in it, and it's not necessarily a problem unless you. It's all about your approach to it mentally as well, right? Like, bad things can happen. Bad things are always going to happen. People are going to die and all that stuff, but it's a question of whether you, how do you take that on? Like, how do you perceive it? How do you choose it? Yeah.
But I think it's a good, like, the two stories that we now talk about, like me having the baptism of fire and you almost dying but choosing to go back into the same thing is really nice stories to, because you could also say, well, to me, like, did you go back and fix that? Because as I said, it wasn't just him. I blamed him for a long time, right? boss in that job. Like it was his fault. It was me. It was my fault. I didn't stand up for myself, like in the way that I should. I didn't check in with myself in the way that I should. I didn't know myself because I didn't ask the right questions at that point. So instead of running away from that kind of job situation, which I really enjoyed, I enjoyed working in this field. Now I do something else that I also really enjoyed, and that's a different story of how that came about, because I really believe that this is like a right path, maybe instead of saying the right path, but a right path. But you went back into that and tried to, or are working to heal that, and trying to find that the healthy way of being in this space, because you experienced the unhealthy way. And as if we take ownership for our actions, like you did this to yourself, and I did that to myself. Because I could have just, I could have quit that job earlier, and I had contacts in London. I could have had another job. I would just maybe have a different role in the company, maybe even a role that was more suited for me, because I wasn't ready for all that responsibility. Maybe so from my perspective, that like I could have done things differently instead of just, because I've seen it later on. Like obviously this challenge of having somebody who puts you in this kind of situation, and the way you respond to it, you will experience that again and again and again, unless you do something about it, unless you learn from it, and unless you learn to stand up to that person. So I'm very aware that still, like these types of people, like or this type of people that I would categorize him as, I will meet them again and again, and that's for sure. That's my fairy tale. That's my dragon that I need to slay, so I can get half the kingdom at some point, and learn to balance that. And I think that's and we talked about this last time we spoke together. Like you mentioned that, because when you did the Stretch 22 and all these things you have been doing, like standing on the sideline and talking to you through all this, I have seen like immense like leaps and stretches as we talked about last time. Like because it's like all of a sudden it's like, yes, I stopped doing this and now I can see this and now I can see that. But obviously like change can only happen gradually, and you need to put that back into perspective. You can't just and that's also why when we talk about the transformation, the rite of passage. So yes, you changed and now you come back, but there's still challenges here that you need to face. Like you didn't complete every challenge, you completed a challenge. Now you're back. You will have a similar challenge. Can you fix that? Can you deal with that? But I just did one, so I feel like a fraud if I even have this challenge. That's not how it works. Like demons will appear. Like if you look at a computer game, like there's gonna be thousands. There's gonna be a skeleton boss, but then next level there's still gonna be skeletons showing up. Like that's just how computer games work, and life.
Yeah. And you beat that boss, and then you go to the next level. So
exactly.
It's always like
and sometimes the level doesn't feel like, to use the computer metaphor analogy, because I've been in that space a lot in my life. Like this next level doesn't look as good as you hoped it would be. It's not as shiny or as interesting or just as well designed as you hoped it would be. But you're still working out the kinks. You're not done yet. Like when are you done? Like that's so thinking that, oh, I've solved it, I'm done. That's not a thing. And so obviously you're gonna go back and forth, and you're not gonna meet the same challenges every day. So then you're gonna meet that challenge. Oh, I learned this much about myself. I fixed that. But then you don't experience that situation maybe for a month or two, or half a year, or 2 years. And when it shows again, can you remember what you learned? Like for me, it's always thinking about previous relationships. Like, yeah, so that was an experience, and that ended that way, and I learned a lot. Then the next relationship did exactly the same thing. exactly the same thing. Why? And then that's a good question. You know.
Yeah.
So learning like that. I think I just came up with an idea for the title for this small talk could be "Who's the Boss?"
Who's the boss?
Yeah, because are you in charge, or is the boss like at the office in
Yeah,
charge
yeah.
of you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's
I like that.
that's a good title for this.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's probably a kind of a theme or topic that it embraces a lot of stuff that we talk about.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably something. It's definitely something that we could talk about a lot more. I
For
think.
sure.
I know I could.
And this is I think I feel like we're rounding off.
Yeah.
Us kind of this
Yeah. Well,
finishing.
it's just over an hour. I think that's kind of
perfect.
like yeah.
And this was the first time doing this, and it's again interesting learning experience.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I think it's. Do you have anything that you want to cover?
Well, I mean, like if we do like we said, we're gonna do this
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
regular basis. So we're gonna do
Yeah.
this like weekly or bi-weekly.
Yeah.
I mean, at very least once a month. I would
Yeah,
say maybe
yeah.
twice a month is good.
Bi-weekly would be awesome.
Yeah, I think we should do that. And so I think that's actually a beautiful summary. You know, like life is a work in progress, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just like this thing, this podcast, or whatever it is that we
Yeah,
just did.
yeah.
It's going to be constantly evolving and changing and you know, hopefully improving if we can just kind of keep going with it and see where it goes. But the main thing is that we're just doing it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
And I guess that could be like the final thought, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you know, doesn't matter what you're doing. The main thing is that you're doing it. Like the worst thing you can do is just not do it because
Adding to that, like, be conscious of you doing it. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, or well, maybe we can look into that next time, unfold it. But I think this thing of being conscious, what are you doing? So, okay, it's fine that you're doing this thing, but do you know that you're doing it, basically? And do you know what it entails? Like, so I'm working this job. It's a fine job. It's good that I'm doing it. Just do it. But are you aware that it's also making you a bit sad? I am aware. Okay, but I'm making money. For now, maybe that's fine. Like, so I think I get what you're saying, but yeah, I just felt like trying to unfold it a bit for myself.
Sure. Yeah. And whatever it is that you don't like about what you're doing, like what part are you playing in that, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to sort of, I think we can all point out things in our life that we don't like, but then you know, what are the parts of that we're, you know, how complicit are we actually? How much
Yeah.
are we actually,
Yeah.
you know, in control here?
Yeah.
Like, but just generally being aware of
So again, who's the boss?
who's the boss. Exactly.
Awesome.
Sweet.
This was fun.
All right. Yeah.
First
This was
one
great.
done.
Yes. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks probably.
Yeah.
Done.
Done.